RedStar, Rise of a New Empire. RedStar wasn't just any tech mogul. He was a man with a plan that reached beyond his private companies and touched every corner of the world. From the moment his tech empire grew, it was clear that RedStar had bigger ideas in mind. His platforms were everywhere, powering countries, businesses, and everyday lives. People began to depend on his creations. Slowly, quietly, he gained more and more control. At first, the world cheered him on, calling him a visionary. But as his influence spread, so did questions. Could one man really control the flow of information, and in doing so, the fate of nations? Behind the scenes, RedStar was making moves, cutting deals with world leaders and using his tech empire to tie nations closer to him. Countries began bending to his will. Politicians whispered his name in awe and fear, but none of them could see what RedStar had in mind. He wasn't just building an empire. He was planning to reshape the world. As RedStar's reach expanded, tensions started to rise. Leaders from Europe, the United States, and Asia began to see the cracks in their own independence. The US, once proud of its tech innovations, had found itself in bed with RedStar's global platforms. Slowly, the government was becoming too reliant on its technologies to function. Yet, resistance was brewing. The first rumblings came from Europe. Countries like France, Germany, and the UK questioned the power that one man could have over their economy. RedStar's response was quiet but powerful. He pushed back, using his media channels to spin the narrative in his favor. After all, what was the price of progress? Control. Meanwhile, across the ocean, RedStar's empire in the United States grew even stronger. The president, once determined to keep his distance, found himself relying on RedStar for solutions to everything, from defense systems to climate change. RedStar's involvement in the political system was undeniable. But, as the whispers of his increasing influence spread, so did the realization that the world may have been asleep at the wheel. At home, RedStar's life wasn't just about global politics, it was about family. But something was troubling about his son, Yu, a child who seemed to inherit his father's ambition and power. At just 4 years old, Yu wasn't part of the grand schemes yet, but RedStar kept a watchful eye on him. RedStar often wondered if Yu would take after him or go his own way. The boy, though young, had already shown an uncanny awareness of his father's world, often staring at screens and mimicking his movements. But for now, Yu's role was small. He was the heir to the empire, a symbol of RedStar's legacy. RedStar believed his son would one day carry the weight of this new world order. But that was a story for later. Right now, RedStar's attention was on his growing influence and the global chess game that was unfolding. But the cracks were starting to show. Behind closed doors, the leaders of Europe and Asia were beginning to form alliances, each planning how to take RedStar down. They saw the writing on the wall. RedStar couldn't be allowed to control everything. The world needed to remain free, to keep its choices and voices independent. But RedStar wasn't backing down. He had his own strategy. Every move was calculated, every action designed to make him stronger, even as the world began to turn against him. As protests broke out in cities around the globe, RedStar's machines continued to work tirelessly, feeding the public with what they wanted to hear, distorting the truth with careful precision. Tension mounted. The cracks deepened and RedStar could feel his control slipping. The world was no longer passive. It was waking up, and it was about to rise against him. The real question now was how long RedStar could keep control. His empire was vast, but so were the forces gathering against him. He had done what no one had dared before. He had taken over not just the tech world, but the global narrative itself. Yet, every empire has its breaking point. and RedStar knew this better than anyone. The cracks in the system were starting to show, and the rebellion was inevitable. Behind his screens, RedStar watched as his empire was questioned, attacked, and undermined. But for now, he held the reins. The world's leaders were trying to plot their own course, but none had the technological muscle or global influence to make a real impact. But there was something even more pressing on RedStar's mind. You, his son, seemed to be changing. The boy was still young, but his actions, his questions were becoming more pointed, more dangerous. Could you be the one to threaten RedStar's carefully constructed world? Could he, even at his age, be the catalyst for a revolution within his own empire? As the world held its breath, RedStar's vision continued to expand. The world stage was set. The players were in position. And no matter what the resistance did, RedStar had already secured the future. His grip on technology, politics, and even the public's perception was stronger than ever. But there was always the risk that someone or something would rise up to challenge him. Suddenly, amid his growing empire, RedStar felt a shift. A whisper. A thought. A feeling he couldn't shake. Could the one force he couldn't control be the one closest to him? Could it be you? As RedStar stood at the helm of his empire, staring into the unknown future, one thing was clear. His legacy was still being written, but the next chapter might not be in his hands. The question was no longer if the world would turn against him, but whether he could stop the one person who could bring it all crashing down, his own son. To be continued.